beneath the expansive star-studded expanse of the Mongolian sky, where the Milky Way spills its celestial light upon the endless plains. There existed a nomadic tribe living a life intertwined with the rhythm of the wind and the earth. Their days were spent tending to their flocks, herding animals across the vast, open range that stretched as far as the eye could see. The decision he was about to share would test the very core of their being, their loyalty, their bravery, their humanity. "We have two options," the Khan began, his voice echoing the solemnity of the moment, "to resist or to unite." As the day of reckoning approached, the once tranquil camp buzzed with nervous energy. The soft murmur of daily life was replaced by the clang of weapons and the hurried whispers of strategy. The men looked at each other, their faces reflecting the flickering light of the campfire. The weight of their decision pressed down on them like a physical burden. The victory he had expected had turned into a hard-fought draw, and in that moment he realized that the true strength of a nation lay not in its size or its brute force, but in the unwavering spirit of its people. The nomadic tribes of the Mongolian steppe, though scattered and divided, had shown him the true meaning of unity, resistance, and resilience. Their nights were filled with the soft murmur of family and the crackling warmth of a fire shared between loved ones. To unite is ... unthinkable. The Khan nodded slowly. The combined forces of the various tribes stood ready, their faces grim, their bodies tense. The battle that followed was epic, a clash of wills, a test of But as the sun began its slow descent, it became clear that the tide was turning. Genghis's army, though formidable, was not accustomed to fighting on multiple fronts. The united tribes, fueled by a desperation born of circumstance, fought with the ferocity of cornered wolves. He understood the sentiment, the deep-rooted fear that came from facing the unknown. But he also saw an opportunity, a chance to not just survive but to thrive. It was a life of simplicity, a life in harmony with nature, a life that seemed timeless. Their leader, a man known simply as the Khan, was a figure of respect and wisdom. His face, etched with the lines of countless seasons, bore the quiet strength of a life well lived, a life lived in service to his people. The Khan's tent, a symbol of authority and community, stood as a central point of life for the tribe. Within its sturdy walls, decisions were made that affected every member of the tribe, each decision echoing the values of honor, courage, and loyalty that defined their way of life. But this idyllic existence was not to last. A shadow loomed on the horizon. He felt a knot of worry tighten in his chest. He had heard tales of Genghis' victories, of the respect and fear he inspired in equal measure. The Khan, a man who had always prided himself on his strategic prowess, found himself contemplating a future that seemed bleak. To fight would mean certain annihilation. To submit meant surrendering one's identity, one's pride, one's very essence. A darkness that threatened to engulf their world. From the north, a force was advancing, a force led by a man named Genghis, a name that would soon become synonymous with power and conquest. The approaching army was large, disciplined, and driven by an ambition that knew no bounds. They were led by a man who was not merely a conqueror, but a visionary, a man who would unite disparate tribes and turn them into an unstoppable force. When the news of Genghis' approach reached the Khan, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the camp, the Khan gathered his men. After a long, tense silence, one of the men, a grizzled veteran of countless battles, spoke up. "To resist is futile." In the ensuing days, the tribe made preparations. Some reluctantly agreed to join Genghis's fold, while others chose to resist. When Genghis and his army arrived, the sight that greeted them was one of a united front. As the stars emerged one by one in the darkening sky, Genghis found himself leading a battered, exhausted army. Life in the 13th century wasn't easy, especially if you were part of the Mongol Empire. Here's why you wouldn't last a day in a Mongol encampment. Today we're answering a rather intriguing question, but the comfort of extra sleep was not afforded to anyone in a Mongol encampment. The piercing call of a pre-dawn wind was your alarm clock. It slithered through any cracks in the gear, the circular felt dwelling that served as your home, rousing you from your slumber. Packing up your entire dwelling, dismantling the gear and its various components, and transporting them to new locations was a regular occurrence. This nomadic lifestyle demanded resilience and adaptability, traits that you might not possess. Not only would you need to manage your own belongings, but you'd also need to constantly adjust to new surroundings and challenges. The absence of a gentle morning light meant that your day began not with the sunrise, but with the pale, ghostly glow of twilight. Becoming proficient riders and handling bows and arrows with ease, you would have to learn alongside them, picking up skills such as horsemanship and archery to navigate this rugged world. Why wouldn't you last a day in a Mongol encampment? Let's get into it. A daily struggle against the elements and the need for constant movement. It was a world where comfort was a rarity and survival was a daily achievement. So the question stands, would you be able to last a day in such a challenging environment? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more historical tales. Thank you for watching. Welcome back, everyone. Waking up early was not just a suggestion, it was a necessity. The sun might have been generous with its light. Your sleep surface was likely a layer of felt over a wooden frame, occasionally supplemented by animal skins. Imagine a simple bowl of warm, salted milk tea. You would have to consider not just where it came from, but how you used it. In times when rivers froze or summers brought water shortages, every drop was important. Imagine melting snow or ice to get water, a task requiring time and effort. Your daily routine would revolve around these tasks: herding animals, gathering resources, and preparing meals. You would spend your hours tending to sheep, guiding horses, and ensuring the well-being of the herd. Hunting might also feature in your daily activities, not just for sport, but for sustenance, perhaps with a few spoonfuls of dried curds or some leftover meat from the previous day. Such a diet, while filling, lacked the variety and freshness of modern cuisine. Fruits and vegetables were a rare treat, a luxury reserved for special occasions. The staple of your diet was meat, often boiled or dried for preservation, with mutton, goat, and occasionally horse meat gracing your table. For those with a sweet tooth, there was kumis, a fermented mare's milk, a drink both goony and intriguing. And if you were fortunate enough to find a patch of unbroken sleep, you would wake up to the symphony of the steppe, the creaking of the jar's wooden frame in the wind, the murmur of the herd outside, and the faint, earthy scent of dung used for fuel. All these sounds and smells were the soundtrack and aroma of your daily life. The terrain was not just uneven, it was a constant challenge. There were no soft carpets or cushioned beds. Your breakfast would be a far cry from the modern morning meal. Water was not just a household fixture, it was a precious commodity. Your home was not stationary, it moved with you, adapting to the rhythm of the natural world. In this world, education was not confined to classrooms. Children learned survival skills early. In essence, life in a Mongol encampment in the 13th century was a test of The nights brought a different kind of challenge. The temperature could plummet, even after a warm day. The sun beat down with a relentless heat and the wind carried the fine dust of the earth, coating everything and everyone in a thin layer of grit. The wind found its way into every tent, every shelter. The chores are many and the hours long. The animals must be tended to, the camp dismantled, and the supplies gathered. Every movement is measured, every action purposeful. There is no room for error, no margin for mistakes. For here on the edge of the world, life is a precarious balance between hardship and hope, carrying with it the dust of the earth and the chill of the night. It was a relentless force that tested the limits of endurance. The air shimmers with heat and the ground beneath your feet seems to radiate warmth. You wipe the sweat from your brow, your movements slow and deliberate, where each day is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. It is a world that has shaped nomads into some of the toughest, most self-sufficient individuals known to man. And it is a world that continues to exist, untouched by the complexities of modern life. A world of open skies and endless horizons. It is a world that whispers stories of survival and of hardship and hope. A world that dares to test the limits of human resilience. A world that is both harsh and beautiful, unforgiving, yet the tasks seem endless, the shadows cast by the blazing sun, stretching long and distorted. The sky above is a dome of fire, the earth beneath a sea of burning sand, and still the work continues, the cycle of survival unbroken, the rhythm of life on the steppe unwavering. That made each moment a battle against the elements, a stolen moment of calm before the chill of the night returns. The sky turns from blue to purple, the clouds tinged with hues of orange and red. It's a fleeting spectacle, a reminder of beauty in the midst of hardship. As darkness falls, the temperature drops. The wind picks up, carrying with it the whispers of the night. The stars emerge, cold and distant, indifferent to the drama that unfolds below. And so the night passes, filled with the symphony of the steppe, the whisper of the wind, the rustle of unseen creatures, and the distant howl of a lone wolf. It was a life of quiet endurance, a life of physical demands, and a life of an unyielding connection to the land and its creatures. There were no distractions, no diversions from the rhythm of survival, no urgent news to consume, no artificial lights to illuminate the darkness. Only the stars above, a silent, indifferent audience to the drama that unfolded below. The nights were cold, and the biting wind carried with it the smell of snow even when none had fallen. It was a world of extremes, of scorching heat and freezing cold, of endless blue skies and star-filled nights. It was a world where the elements held all the power, and where life was a constant negotiation with nature. The silence of the steppe was profound, broken only by the wind, perhaps the distant howl of a wolf, or the soft breathing of those sleeping near you. There were no streetlights, no electric glow. The sky above was a canvas of unimaginable stars, a cosmic tapestry that felt both infinite and intimately close. This vastness could be comforting in its grandeur, but also humbling in its reminder of humanity's small place in the grand scheme of things. The days were filled with the endless blue of the sky meeting the endless brown of the steppe, a horizon that seemed to stretch into forever. And then there were the insects, the unseen multitude that made their presence known through relentless bites. In the warmer months, they were a constant nuisance, a reminder that life here was never comfortable, never free from the need to defend oneself against the smallest and most persistent of attackers. They were the unseen army that tested the limits of endurance, that made each moment a battle against discomfort. And always there was the wind, an omnipresent force that seemed to know no rest. It moaned across the steppe, carrying with it the whispers of a forgotten language, a language of sand and sky, of hardship and solitude. It was a melody of survival, a dirge of those who lived on the edge of the world. In this symphony of solitude and struggle, there was little respite, little comfort. Imagine waking up before the sun, your body stiff from the cold, your mind already calculating the day's challenges. As the sun climbs higher in the sky, so does the temperature. When the sun finally begins its descent, there is a brief respite. This is the story of countless lives lived on the edge of the world, a world where survival is a daily triumph. His empire stretched from the Pacific to Poland, a feat unmatched by his contemporaries. Yet his rise was not swift, nor without its setbacks. Even as he gained prominence, there were those who underestimated him, who saw his unorthodox tactics and diverse retinue as a sign of weakness. They were wrong. Genghis Khan's empire was built on the foundations of adaptability, on embracing diversity as a strength, and on strategies that confounded his enemies. His military genius lay not only in his tactical brilliance, but in his understanding of the value of different cultures, and his willingness to exploit that diversity to his advantage. He recognized the power of gunpowder, the effectiveness of siegecraft, and the value of astronomical charts. Incorporating these into his military strategies, his empire, therefore, was not just a product of brute force, but of a calculated, almost scientific approach to conquest. Imagine standing at the edge of a battlefield, watching two armies poised to clash. On one side are the Mongols, a force often underestimated due to their unconventional practices and diverse composition. On the other are various Chinese, Western, Asian, or Central Asian states, each a formidable power in their own right. What seems like a simple battle of swords and shields is in reality a clash of world views, of strategies and technologies. It's a testament to Genghis Khan's brilliance that he was able to leverage this, turning what could have been a liability into his greatest strength. Yet, despite his military prowess, it was his administrative acumen that truly laid the groundwork for his empire's longevity. He introduced concepts like accounting, standardization, and meritocracy, principles unheard of in a world dominated by feudalism and hereditary privilege. Imagine living in a time when passing trade along a Silk Road meant risking extortion, robbery, or even war. Then comes Genghis Khan with his yasa, a legal code that not only brought order to his vast domains, but also standardized weights, measures, and even minted coins. Suddenly, trade becomes safer, more predictable, and the flow of goods increases dramatically. This wasn't just about control or revenue. It was about creating a system that allowed his empire to function smoothly, efficiently, and most importantly, fairly. His empire, therefore, was not just a collection of disparate lands, but a functional, surprisingly modern administrative unit. It was under his rule that the Pax Mongolica flourished, a period of relative peace and stability that facilitated trade and cultural exchange across Eurasia. The world he created was one of surprising sophistication, a melting pot of cultures and ideas that would influence the course of history. But as with all great tales, there's more to the story. For a while, Genghis Khan is celebrated as a brilliant conqueror and administrator. He's also remembered for his ruthlessness. Cities that resisted his rule often faced annihilation. Prisoners sometimes met a gruesome end, and entire populations were decimated in the face of his relentless armies. It's a dark side of history that makes us confront the complexities of his legacy. Was he a monster, as some have portrayed him, or a visionary leader simply employing the methods necessary to forge a new world order? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in between, a reminder that even in the grand tapestry of history, good and evil are often intricately intertwined. Genghis Khan died in 1227, leaving behind a legacy that's both fascinating and controversial. His empire, though short-lived in terms of direct control, had a profound impact that resonated for centuries. The Silk Roads thrived under his Paxmong. Ideas and innovations spread across Eurasia, and trade routes that had been perilous became safer due to his standardized legal code. Yet, his empire was not a static monument. It evolved, incorporating diverse cultures and even employing former enemies. This wasn't just about conquest or control. It was about creating a functional, surprisingly modern administrative unit in a world that was still largely feudal. Genghis Khan's story is a reminder that history rarely presents us with clear-cut heroes or villains. It's a tapestry woven with threads of ambition, loyalty, ruthlessness, and innovation. As we delve deeper into his story, we'll continue to uncover the many facets of this enigmatic figure, separating the myth from the man and gaining a deeper understanding of the man who went from outcast to emperor. A long time ago, there was a man named Timur. Maybe you've heard of him. He was born into a tribe of sheep herders on the Mongolian steppe. His father, Yasuge, was ambitious, a leader with a vision of uniting the various Mongol tribes. But when Temujin was just a boy, his father was poisoned, supposedly by Tatars, a neighboring tribe. Now, with their father gone, Temujin and his family were in big trouble. Coordinated attacks that totally bewildered his opponents. He had achieved what was thought to be impossible, unifying the Mongol tribes under one banner. And in 1206, at a great assembly called a Kurutai, held on the banks of the Anan River, he was proclaimed Genghis Khan, which means oceanic ruler. And that is how Temujin, the former slave and outcast, became Genghis Khan, the most powerful man in the world. Plus, he knew how to use the terrain to his advantage, like when he lured his enemies into narrow passes where his cavalry could swoop in and crush them. And even when he was outnumbered, he never gave up. He fought with a ferocity that was inspiring to his troops and terrifying to his enemies. And as he won more battles, more people wanted to join him. Warriors from defeated tribes even put down their weapons and came to serve under him. Talk about a brilliant military mind. They were outcasts, barely surviving on the hostile steppes. When Temujin was around 19 or 20, his family was captured by rival tribes, and for a while, life as a slave was really hard, because the reign of Genghis Khan would change the world. Like how he built an empire that stretched from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe, and how his armies were the most diverse fighting force in the world. But if you want to hear those stories, you'll have to follow, because we've got a lot more adventures planned. But eventually, he managed to get himself free. But then his wife was taken by another group. So he put together a small band of followers and charged into battle. And this is how he won. In fact, let's fast forward a little bit, because in case you don't know, this guy went on to found the biggest contiguous land empire in history. And if you want to know how he did it, you're going to have to stick around, because we are about to find out. The Mongolian steppe was a wild place full of different tribes with different languages and loyalties. So the first thing Temujin did was to begin uniting the tribes under his banner. But here's the thing. He didn't just do it by force, though he definitely used that. He also used strategy, alliances, and a deep understanding of the people around him. See, he noticed that each tribe had its own strengths and weaknesses, and he knew that if he could use them to his advantage, he could win. For example, some tribes were really good at horse riding, so he'd put them in charge of his cavalry. Others were great archers, so they became his elite long-range force. This way, he built an army that was stronger than any one tribe could be on its own. How Genghis Khan became the most powerful man in the world. You see, Temujin believed that the best man for the job should get the job, not the guy with the best family name. And that was a new idea in a world where birthright usually determined your fate. He promoted men based on their skills and achievements, not their background. And this approach was revolutionary. It inspired people to work hard and be loyal to him, not to their clan or their family. Alright, so our story takes place in a time and a place where survival was tough. But it wasn't just about the tribes. He also paid attention to the people within them. Okay, so now let's talk about his strategies in battle, because they were pretty brilliant. He used feigned retreats, flanking maneuvers and rapid. So in the end, after decades of struggle, alliance building and warfare, Temujin had become the most powerful Mongol leader. And if you think that's a crazy story, wait till you hear what happens next. Okay, so there's a lot more to the story of Genghis Khan. In the meantime, remember to subscribe for more epic tales of history's greatest leaders. And until next time, keep learning. Let's take a look at some of the lost manuscripts and legends of the Mongols. From the ashes of the Great Khan, the secret history of the Mongols, a manuscript so vital to our understanding of Genghis Khan and his age, yet so shrouded in mystery that its discovery was almost a miracle. Piecing together the history of the Mongols is like assembling a shattered mirror. The secret history covers only a part of the story, reflecting the interests and concerns of the Mongol rulers of his age. The tension between the desire for order and the acceptance of chaos. Human lives, empires, even history itself, is messy, unpredictable, and often contradictory. The challenge, then, is to appreciate this complexity without letting it overwhelm us, to hold the legends in one hand and the facts in the other, and seek a balance between the two. The secret history may not offer all the answers we seek, but it does pose the right questions, reminding us that behind every great leader, every towering empire, there is a human story waiting to be uncovered. And in the case of Genghis Khan, that story is nothing short of epic. Our picture of Genghis Khan, the warrior poet, the lawgiver, the unifier of the tribes, is undoubtedly powerful. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and join the community. Until next time, stay curious, keep asking questions, and remember, the past is never as simple as it seems. Thanks for watching. But how much of this was shaped by the desire to present a glorious, almost godlike figure to both inspire and intimidate, leaving many questions unanswered and creating more? It speaks of a glorious destiny, a mandate from heaven, yet offers little detail about the actual mechanics of conquest. It celebrates military victories in sweeping terms, but is curiously silent on the details of tactics and strategies. Even the end of the great Khan's life, shrouded in legend, is dealt with in a mere 4 sentences, and who can blame them? After all, it is rumored that the original manuscript had parts torn out and burned, making our surviving copies even more incomplete. It was not until the early 1800s that a Russian professor, thanks to a tipper from a Chinese friend, tracked down a copy of this work in a remote monastery. Imagine the thrill of holding such a historical treasure, the weight of generations of history suddenly tangible, whispering its secrets only to those who could read the ancient script. This was no dry, academic text. It was a window into the soul of an empire, a tapestry woven with threads of myth and reality, power and vulnerability. Yet even with this invaluable resource, in the absence of hard facts, legends have flourished. One such legend is the tale of Kublai Khan's supposed visit to the Pope, a journey of diplomacy or perhaps a pilgrimage of faith. This story, though charming, seems to be a later invention, serving more as a diplomatic tool than a historical account. So what are we to make of this rich, evocative text, and the tantalizing gaps it leaves in the historical record? Perhaps the secret history was never meant to be anything more than a dynastic record, a way to enshrine the glory of the Bordigad clan in the hearts and minds of future generations. Like an ancient epic, its purpose was to inspire awe and obedience, not to instruct or inform. Only later, as the Mongol Empire expanded, did the need arise for more detailed accounts of their past. That task fell to men like Rashid al-Jin, whose universal history attempted to encompass not just the Mongols, but the entire known world. He consulted the secret history, drawing from its poetic renderings of events to create his own more comprehensive narratives. Yet even Rashid al-Din's works have their own biases and agendas. As we delve deeper into the history of the Mongols, we encounter a challenge inherent in any grand narrative. What do you think? Is there another historical figure you'd like me to cover in this series? The Secret History of the Mongols, where history meets mystery. The Secret History, a trove of 13th century tales, offers a captivating look into the lives and times of Genghis Khan and his fellow Mongols. However, the existence of this invaluable text raises more questions than it answers. Where was the original kept? A world of epic battles, of horsemanship, of a society deeply entwined with its natural environment. What did their social structure look like? Pottery shards, remnants of daily life, tell a story of their own. What were these Mongols eating, and what kind of technology did they use? How did their daily lives look? Each shard is like a silent storyteller. In the vast expanse of Mongolia, the search for his tomb is a metaphor for our relationship with history. We have access to ancient texts, like the Secret History, which provide us with a narrative of the past. But we also have the tools and knowledge to delve deeper, to use archaeology to fill in the gaps, to question the narratives, and to piece together a more complete and nuanced picture of our shared history. The relationship between history and mystery is a complex and fascinating one, and nowhere is this more evident than in the case of the Mongols. As we continue to uncover more about their rich and complex past, we must remember that every answer often leads to more questions. That's the nature of the pursuit of knowledge. But in the endless quest to understand the past, we find not just answers, but also inspiration. We find a reminder of the boundless curiosity that has always driven humanity forward. The Secret History of the Mongols invites us to do just that, to explore, to question, and to marvel at the tapestry of history. In doing so, we pay homage to the countless individuals whose stories have shaped our world. We can study chronicles, analyze texts, and unearth artifacts, but some things remain shrouded in mystery. Some moments in history are so monumental, so inspiring that they transcend the realm of the purely historical. They become legendary. The feats associated with Genghis Khan and his warriors seem almost mythical in their scale and daring. The idea of a people uniting the disparate tribes of the Mongolian steppe to create a vast empire is nothing short of remarkable. The very mention of the Mongol Empire conjures images of a thundering horde riding across the plains, their numbers so vast they blotted out the sun. Their equestrian skills, military tactics, and sheer tenacity became stuff of legend. But behind these legendary tales lie real people with real motivations, hopes, and dreams. Archaeology helps us to understand the reality of the Mongols, the intricacies of their society, their material culture, and the world they inhabited. It allows us to see the humanity in the midst of all the conquest and legend, narrating its tale to those who know how to listen. It's a testament to the patience, skill, and sheer dedication required to piece together the past. What were their beliefs? There is one overarching question that has echoed through the ages. Where is the tomb of Genghis Khan? This isn't just an academic curiosity. It's a question that touches on faith, legend, and the very essence of what it means to be human. His tomb is likely in Mongolia, but the exact location remains a secret, known only to a few. Could this be the final resting place of the man who united the tribes and led his people to greatness? The possibility is both exciting and humbling. These fundamental questions, while seemingly simple, are surprisingly difficult to answer. The Secret History, with its focus on great deeds and lineages, doesn't provide the kind of detail that would satisfy our modern understanding of history. But the very absence of such details in the Secret History prompts us to seek them elsewhere, to explore other avenues, be it through material remains, or through other historical records. And that's where archaeology steps in. The story of how this manual was found is almost as fascinating as its content. Imagine the thrill of the 1880s explorers and scholars who stumbled upon this ancient manuscript, each page holding secrets that could rewrite history. But as they delved deeper into its contents, they encountered an enigma. The language was a mystery, a puzzle that would only be solved with the efforts of dedicated linguists and historians over the coming decades. This sense of discovery and the challenge of deciphering the past are integral to the allure of archaeology. Did it slumber in a royal treasury, guarded through ages, Or did it travel with the great Mongol horde across their vast empire? Or perhaps it was lost to the ravages of time and the nomadic life of the Mongols, only to be rediscovered centuries later. The secret history is not just a historical document. It's a window into a world that many of us can scarcely imagine. Yet the secret history itself is strangely silent about some aspects of early Mongol life. What was everyday life like for the Mongols? Archaeological finds begin to fill in the gaps left by the secret history. But the mysteries don't end there. Genghis Khan's legacy is vast, but his personal resting place continues to be a silent, hidden part of his story. So as we stand on the edge of the 21st century, we find ourselves in a unique position. Today we're going to talk about the Mongols. The ruling class enjoyed a level of opulence that was actually quite shocking given the empire's reputation for being rough and tumble. So let's dive into the world of the Mongol Khans and find out what they really lived like. You may have heard about them before. We all know that the Mongols loved their meat. Gatherings that could last for days and involve hundreds or even thousands of guests. Well, here again, we see a combination of nomadic simplicity and imperial grandeur. They might ride horses with silver or gold saddles and bridles, and they might carry weapons that were not only functional but also beautiful works of craftsmanship. In short, the Mongols were perfectly willing to enjoy the fruits of their conquests, as long as those fruits didn't weigh them down too much. On the one hand, the Mongols didn't have the resources or the desire to build lavish palaces or to stockpile tons of useless books. On the other hand, they did have access to the goods of the entire empire, and they weren't afraid to use them. These feasts were more than just a chance to eat good food and drink good booze. They were also a way to display the Khan's power and wealth. The guest would be seated in a strict hierarchy, with the Khan at the top, of course, and lesser members of the court lower down, and the flow of food and drink would be carefully controlled to ensure that everyone knew their place. But that didn't mean that their meals were boring. In fact, Mongol cuisine was surprisingly sophisticated, with cooks that were trained in the arts of baking, brewing, and butchery, and ruthless empires are made up of human beings with all the same needs and desires as the rest of us, including the desire to live in comfort. A typical meal for the Khan might include whole roasted animals. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and join us next time as we continue to explore the fascinating history of the Mongol Empire. Platters piled high with grilled meats and fish, and an endless supply of dairy products like curds, cheese and fermented mares, milk, and to wash it all down, the Mongols had a wide variety of alcoholic beverages, including beer, wine, and a type of distilled spirit called vodka. A group of horse-riding warriors from the Asian steppes, who built the largest contiguous land empire in history. They were known for their incredible mobility, military prowess, and adaptability. But what you may not know is that they also had a surprisingly rich and complex culture. And one aspect of this culture that is often overlooked is the luxury that surrounded the lives of the Khans, the Mongol Empire. You see, while most Mongols lived a life of simplicity as nomadic herds, the first thing that you should know about Khan luxury is that it was highly dependent on mobility. See, when you live in a yurt, a portable dwelling made of felt and wood, these special yurts, reserved only for the highest-ranking members of society, were often several times larger than the standard-issue gers, and required dozens of men to assemble. Once set up, they would have felt walls so thick and sturdy that they could be reused for generations, and the interior would be lined with tapestries, carpets and cushions to make it as comfortable as possible for the Khan and his court. Your lifestyle is dictated by the seasons and the need to move with your flock. Even when the Mongols started to conquer more settled lands, they still preferred to live in yurts rather than build permanent structures. This meant that their concept of luxury had to be highly portable and adaptable, which led to some pretty interesting solutions. For example, imagine a yurt that's so big it needs its own team of oxen to move it. Speaking of comfort, let's talk about the food. But food wasn't the only way that the Mongols showed off their wealth. They also loved to put on feasts. But what about the finer things in life? How did the Mongols decorate their homes and dress themselves? A well-to-do Mongol might dress in robes made of silk or brocade, and they might adorn themselves with jewelry made of precious metals and stones. So there you have it, a glimpse into the surprisingly luxurious world of the Mongol Khans. It's a reminder that even the most feared When we think of ancient conquerors, images of fierce warriors on horseback come to mind. Genghis Khan and his successors ruled vast empires. Their armies were legendary for their discipline and skill in warfare. Life at the court of the great Khan was a fascinating blend of luxury, duty, and strategic importance. When foreign envoys or conquered rulers visited the Khan's court, they were met with an awe-inspiring display of wealth and might. These were not mere subsistence hunts, but they were far from uncommon. Despite their warrior culture, they valued learning, strategy, and even artistic pursuits. But a sophisticated system of power projection, diplomacy, and administration. Do you have any other historical periods you'd like us to cover in this series? Share your thoughts below. Thanks for watching. All wrapped within the surprisingly luxurious heart of a nomadic empire that reshaped the world. Warfare wasn't just about brute force, but also about intelligence, planning, and logistics. The Khans were at the center of this web of activity, both as the ultimate authority and as participants in various aspects of their empire's functioning. But elaborate affairs involving thousands of beaters, vast hunting grounds, and intricate strategies to drive game towards the Khan and his retinue. These hunts served as training for warfare, a display of martial prowess, and a chance for the Khan to bond with his nobles while showcasing his wealth and power to visiting dignitaries. The contrast with the daily life of the common Mongol was stark, yet there was a complex interdependency. The common Mongols' disciplined life and martial prowess formed the backbone of the empire, providing the warriors and the nomadic resilience that allowed the Khans to conquer and maintain their vast territories. In return, the empire's wealth, generated through conquests, taxation, and trade, flowed, in part, back to the steppe, providing opportunities and a degree of stability that had been unknown in the fragmented tribal era. This opulence served as a tangible manifestation of the Khan's dominance, a clear message that resistance was futile and submission would be rewarded with inclusion in this vast, prosperous network. Gifts were exchanged, often lavishly. They continued to travel, moving their courts about, albeit in grander style, across their vast domains. This constant movement allowed them to maintain a direct connection with different parts of their empire, to inspect their armies, and to oversee their administration. It was a unique form of governance, rooted in the mobility that had defined their ancestors, further cementing alliances and demonstrating the Khan's generosity and reach. Imagine the grand ceremonies, the formalized debates, and the pronouncements of decrees that took place amidst these luxurious settings. It was a place where the boundaries between opulence and administration, between feasting and governance were often blurred. Decisions about war and peace, taxation, trade, and infrastructure were made in these yurts, shaping the lives of millions. The best scholars, engineers, and administrators from across their vast domains were often brought to the Khan's court, their knowledge serving the empire's ambitions. Let us delve into this captivating historical period and explore what life was really like in the court of the great Khan. But what kind of life did these great conquerors lead when they were unbusy with campaigns and conquests? How did they govern their massive empires? What did their day-to-day look like? Surprisingly, the answer is not as cut and dry as one might think. In fact, it was probably pretty sweet. Welcome to my channel. And today, let's find out what life was like in the court of the great Khan. But this luxury was not merely for personal comfort. It was deeply intertwined with politics and the projection of power. The court of the great Khan was the administrative heart of an empire that stretched across continents. Even the simple act of hunting became a grand spectacle for the Khans. To say that the Mongols were nomadic is accurate. Despite the trappings of luxury, the Khans never completely shed their nomadic skin. So, as we imagine the feasts and finery of the Khans, we see not just indulgence. What did you find most surprising about life in the court of the great Khan? We awoke before the sun, the biting wind of the steppe already whispering tales of the day's chill. Our breath plumed in the frosty air when the sun dipped below the horizon. The crackle of the fire was a counterpoint to the vast silence of the steppe. Now the fire has dimmed and the sky is veiled in velvet darkness, studded with a million diamond stars. The wind, once a constant companion during the day, is hushed, allowing an eerie silence to blanket the camp. No longer do the sounds of preparation and life echo across the plains. Instead, there's a stillness that seems to stretch endlessly, broken only by the distant cry of an owl. The campfire, now just a pile of glowing embers, reflects the dying embers of the day. It's a stark reminder of the relentless passage of time. The warmth that chased away the morning chill is now a fading memory, leaving only the cold embrace of the night. The coldness seeps into the very bones, a stark contrast to the earlier camaraderie around the fire. The comfort of community is gone, replaced by the stark reality of individual survival. In this desolate landscape, under this uncaring sky, the harsh realities of life on the steppe settle in. The gnawing cold, the loneliness of the vast prairie, the endless cycle of survival. And yet, somewhere in the distance, a lone wolf cries, and its mournful song carries on the wind, a poignant reminder of the wild beauty of this untamed world. Painting the sky in hues of bruised plum and molten gold, we gently bring our journey to a close. We have traversed the biting winds of the steppe, imagined the harsh realities of daily nomadic life, followed the extraordinary rise of an outcast to a universal emperor, and pondered the enduring mysteries whispered through ancient texts and the silent land itself. We have witnessed the profound contrast between struggle and staggering luxury, all woven into the rich tapestry of the Mongol Empire. Consider how these lives, so distant from our own in time and experience, nonetheless speak to universal themes. The resilience of the human spirit in the face of immense hardship, the transformative power of leadership, the enduring allure of hidden histories, and the complex interplay between power and daily existence. The Mongols, forged by the very landscape they inhabited, carved out an empire that touched countless lives and reshaped the global landscape, leaving behind a legacy that continues to intrigue and inspire quiet reflection. Their story is a powerful reminder that even in the most challenging environments, human ingenuity, ambition, and the deep rhythms of community can build something truly extraordinary. Now, as the last remnants of our historical journey dissolve, allow your mind to gently detach, to float back to the comfort and quiet of your present moment. The vast steppes, the thundering hooves, the grand yurts, all recede into the realm of memory. There is no need for active thought, no need for effort. Just release and allow yourself to drift. Sleep, if it calls to you, with the gentle murmur of history as your companion. May your rest be peaceful, deep, and utterly restorative. Good night. There was a communal sigh, a shared exhale as the relentless sun eased its fiery scrutiny. In these precious hours before darkness, full-throated laughter echoed across the plains. Stories spun, songs soared, and the cold, hard facts of survival gave way to the warmth of human connection. Around the flickering campfire, under the vast star-dusted sky, the nomads found solace, sharing tales as old as the mountains, their voices carrying the weight of generations past. For here, in the crucible of the grassland, life was hard, but the human spirit found ways to bloom, to tell its stories and sing its songs. It was a world away from the opulence of the great Khan's court, yet somehow it felt like a continuation of the same story, a story of struggle, adaptation, and the indomitable human spirit. Each puffed dragon sigh against the canvas walls of our yurt. Life here began with the first light, the urgent needs of livestock, the soft tread of preparing for a day on the move. The endless sky was a monochrome palette of grey, the horizon blurred where earth and heaven seemed to meld, a stark, harsh beauty, much like the life its people lived. Days were measured in the endless rhythm of riding, eating, sleeping, always with the awareness of the next move. The constant companionship of the wind and the lonely cry of the occasional bird. The open range was a world away from the cloistered halls of yet both were bound by the same unforgiving laws of survival. Every sunrise brought a new calculation, a delicate balance of resources, the careful choreography of survival. No room here for excess, only the parsimony of the prairie. Here, every inch of the yurt, every bite of dried meat, every drop of water carried was a testament to the fine-tuned art of living on the edge, a quiet, stark existence where the luxuries were few and far between. Yet there were moments, brief, incandescent moments when the harshness of the steppe yielded to a different tune. The memory of firelight flickered, casting dancing shadows that mimicked the flickering flames. Now, as the echoes of Mongol feasts fade into the quiet of the past,